Welcome to Hey Sound Guy, the podcast where I will be peeking behind the curtains of the wonderful world of music. Each week I'll be speaking to sound engineers, music industry professionals and musicians, and we'll have a little chat today. There's some fun stories from the road. Now my next guest is a very talented keyboard player and musician. I know him from working with The Sessions, a function band. We've worked together for about 3 years now. He also runs the Camden Voices, who have recently done a virtual choir, and that's had a great reception, very many views, and I think that was quite successful. They were also on BBC World Radio, and that was quite an interesting interview. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend Ed Blunt.
Hello everybody.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm fine. It's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? This isolation's getting to everyone.
Yeah, but in a funny way, it's made us more social because we're on Zoom or on FaceTime all the time and catching up with people that we haven't seen for ages. And
yeah, we finally got time now.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's at home. Everyone's available. So it's just sort of the new way of doing things. We did our first choir session last night over Zoom.
Cool.
And you can't sing simultaneously online, but you can have a merry old time.
Yeah.
So everyone bought a tipple, and we just had a bit of fun. The best thing about it is Camden Voices are probably the chattiest choir in the world, and the option to mute all. It just feels
yeah, you're tempted every now and then. You're just like hovering over it.
And then it's just this beautiful silence.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
I heard, I did a gig, a live stream at Ronnie's on Monday with Ashley Henry Trio. Really good. And the drummer, young fella, 17 years old, really good drummer. He said that with Google Hangouts, you can have to up like 200 people at a time, and you can mute people individually. So
wow,
that's tempting.
So
but
how did that work? With you, everyone, the band were at Ronnie's, were they?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we did. It was basically skeleton crew. It was me, and the videographer, the band, the drummer's mum, and Nick Lewis, who is part of the booking team there. He's organised the whole thing, and that was basically just before we got proper lockdown.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is that essential work? Maybe we can slide that past. You know.
Well, if it keeps people happy, then I don't know.
It had quite a good reception as well. I think something like 32,000 people watched.
Ooh.
On the YouTube channel, and then there were a few other sort of channels, and they were still getting all the numbers together, and people were super generous. They donated something like nearly £3,000, which was
that's more than you get on your average
right?
jazz gig, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was very good and very successful.
Yeah.
And it was very weird to have a band play to an empty club.
Yeah, I bet.
But I mean, they smashed it. They did such a good job, really. Very talented musicians, all through them. Ferg Island on bass. I don't know if you've heard it, or he plays with Kansas Smithies, and then Ashley Henry, obviously, talented pianist. All sort of young cats, just bringing the jazz. So that's
something like this. It just shows the scope of human creativity, doesn't it? What you can do when you really cut down your parameters, and what you can do in four walls by yourself, and make things happen, and cross boundaries, etc.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's I think we're finding new ways to get our creativity out, because like you said, now we're almost confined in a way, because we can't travel around and all that. So now we have to find new ways to get all these things out. And I see a lot of musicians doing online sessions or Facebook Live or Instagram Live where they do sessions, and they'll do, they'll singers that would play piano and sing and these sorts of, like Leanne Carroll. Do you know Leanne Carroll?
Yeah, I love
She
Leanne
raised last night £1,300 and something for the NHS.
Flipping heck.
Yeah, that's really good, and she's so awesome, man. She's
I must check that out. And the other thing is, you see all these lots of musicians pushing these new side gigs that you'd never heard about. For example, I'm a singer, but now I'm teaching Italian online, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing about musicians. Everyone has some sort of side hustle. For me, it's graphic design, so I've been trying to push that a bit more, to try and get the cash flowing in a bit. But being a musician is a precarious enough career, and working in this industry is anyway. So I think to some extent we're quite good at being adaptable and working out sort of entrepreneurial things to keep the rent paid, and I'm feeling pretty positive about it.
Yeah, no, I think we've all got our own things, and you have to. I mean, I've been sort of hammering on about this. Oh, fuck. What a twat! I haven't. Have you started recording the video?
It says recording at the top.
Okay, good. I didn't, so we might have to piggyback off yours. I've just started recording mine. But
maybe that's because you just pressed record.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's all going now. It's fine. But I've been saying how important it is to have hobbies outside of your work, especially for us as music industry people. Well, I suppose for everybody, especially probably more so for people who do a 9 to 5 that could be very repetitive, that could be boring, that kind of sucks the life out of you. And I think it's really important to have something else that you like that's not related to your work, to kind of stoke the fire and to keep these things going, within yourself. Because I've found that ever since I've really started focusing on doing, my hobbies, and not just doing nothing but work, it kind of brings that other perspective and that other bit of creativity into my work, and I just feel like I've got a renewed vigor to take my work seriously and doing it, to the best of my abilities. Having hobbies and things are very important. And I mean, I want to talk a little bit about the virtual choir that you did, because you did such a good job on the video editing. I want to congratulate you on that. And I know you said there was a bit of work getting that done. And I know from...
It was a huge learning curve.
It is, isn't it? Which program did you use to edit it all together?
So it was all done with the Adobe suite, which I have some experience with working in Illustrator and Photoshop. So there's certain things like file management and sort of basic concepts that do translate across all the softwares, but I had very little experience with the video side of things. So
Premiere Pro.
The first challenge was to gather all of the videos and get them into the same format and into an sort of acceptable file size to be practical to work with, because we were getting all these videos from people all over the world. I filmed this on my 2001 parents' Dell computer, and then I filmed this on my Android, and of course all these file formats just do not get on with each other.
No, they don't.
So the first software I used was Handbrake, which is like an open source video converter.
No, Handbrake, yeah.
And I converted each video twice. The first conversion was to get the video into the smallest possible file size. And it was just like a little thumbnail size video. And that allowed me to edit all the videos without the computer dying on me, basically.
It's very processor heavy.
Yeah, especially when you've got 30 videos on screen, and just doing it on a regular MacBook Pro. And then the second conversion was when I converted them all into the sort of the high res YouTube compatible file size. And then when I had that, when I'd finished my edit, I simply replaced the small files with the big ones. So that's sort of the gist of the bureaucracy of the project, which took up about 90% of the time. There was very little creative time, ironically. And then to create these video grids that you see on the screen, I used After Effects. It might have been the wrong way to do it, but that was how I came up with it. And After Effects allows you to create sort of mathematical grids. And for me as a graphic designer, it was very important that it was mathematical, because you can eyeball these things, but it's just not my way of doing things.
The OCD won't allow you to do that.
So I created about 8 different grid scenes for the video, and then rendered them out of After Effects, which took flipping ages.
It does, especially on a Mac.
Overnight job type thing. And then the final multicam edit was in Premiere Pro, which is a really easy way. Once you've learned how to do it, it's a really easy way just to. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Regarding the audio, that's not my specialism. I sent that to a dear friend of mine, Dan Breyer, who did an amazing job mixing it all.
Did a very good job. I had a listen and it great, man.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I heard it.
I sent it to a buddy of mine, Leo Richardson, sax player.
Yes.
And he was like, man, that sounds amazing. There's no way that these guys recorded. How did they record? I said, most people recorded on their phones and laptops and stuff. It's like,
yeah. The thing is, a modern day iPhone, it's pretty good, I think, the audio quality. And when you've got solid singers who are used to recording and just holding their part, if you've got the source, if the source input is good, you don't really need to do a lot of surgery apart from EQing and reverb and etc.
Maybe some, gain staging stuff.
What does that mean?
Well, gain staging is sort of a mastering concept where you would, instead of adding 12 dB of gain at the source, you go through, say you go, first you'll EQ it, and then in the EQ you'll add 1 or 2 dB of gain. Then you send it to a compressor, and there you'll add a little bit, and then you pump all those into a master track, and then you'll add a little bit more of gain there. So you slowly build it to have the loudness that you want without being overdriven at any one point.
Because all the algorithms are slightly different for the plugins. And
but also, I mean, you just add a little bit here and there, where you don't just go fucking to 11 on your input, and then there's nowhere for you to go. So it's the whole thing of adding little increments here and there.
Yeah.
But I mean, gain staging is also just getting the right level, when you're recording and things like that, setting it. As we do it in the live sort of world is quick thing. Put your fader to 0, then you start turning the gain up so that you've got the correct amount of signal coming through, and then you've got your plus 10 and all the way down to minus infinity to to control, rather than having your fader at minus 90 and really whack the gain up. Then every small increment that you make from there is going to be monumental. So unworkable. You want to try and get it so that your source material is workable and mixable, if you will, especially, I mean, for me in a live situation, it's like that, because I can't not be able to move a fader if I need to boost solo or something like that. So
right, you need the headroom.
That's exactly what
of course there was some interesting trade-offs, because I really wanted to get the video out quickly, because I knew it was a good idea and I knew it would cheer people up, and people needed some beauty in this situation. So we had sort of about a week to turn it around, and the week in which people were making their videos was really the week where this crisis really hit us. So we had singers flying back to Germany, to Estonia, and I mean, these guys, they just shows the dedication of these amazing people in the choir, that they were able to just send these people from wherever they were in the world. And of course, I wanted the maximum amount of videos back, so I couldn't be picky about things, even if we'd specified basic things like, can it be in landscape format? Please try and do it in a well-lit, quiet room. Some of the videos didn't have that, but you know what? If you want to make a project like that happen, you just have to forget about perfection and just work with what you've got.
It's definitely, I agree 100%. And, it being an audio thing, you want to concentrate on getting it sounding good. The video and the visual representation is kind of like an added bonus. But since it's a virtual choir, you need the visuals. But I mean, again, people are going to want to hear it correctly. And like you said, if you've got 30 videos, you can't be too picky. I mean, I've had occasions as well where I've maybe not had the right lighting for the podcast, and some of them look horrible. But in the end, it's about the content and about for me, it's about putting it out there. And like you said, you wanted to get it out. You wanted to cheer people up. You wanted to show, listen, this is what we do, and this is how we go about it. Here it is. If you don't like what it looks like, close your fucking eyes. Just listen to it. We're a great choir, and we put this thing together, so smile, bitch.
And I guess this leads into an interesting idea about if your idea is good enough, it doesn't really matter in what manner you carry it out. It's all about having this philosophy of a very strong central concept. And if the concept is strong, nothing else matters, really.
I agree with you 100%, because I think as well, someone like yourself and me, where we tend to want to be perfectionist in these things, and to a degree, sometimes I think it hinders us do something, because you're like, oh, it's not good enough. But I recently learned to just kind of throw that to the wind. And, if people can kind of see the intention behind it, and they can, they see, okay, well, this isn't perfect in terms of maybe the sound isn't the best, maybe the video isn't the best, whatever, but the intention behind it. And we're fully behind that concept. So,
exactly.
I think people are much more forgiving than we think they are. And I've noticed that a lot. Again, I'm just going to refer back to the live situation, because that's what I'm most familiar with, where musicians, they will sort of nitpick this and that and these and those, especially after a gig. And I, as a kind of spectator to the whole thing, I would be like, you know what? Because I know the music, I know that there were mistakes. But that's neither here nor there. There were 200 to 5,000 people, whoever, however many, that enjoyed it. Did you not see them jump up and down? Did you not see them have a good time? Because people are aware that they're in a live situation, and everything can't just be perfect. Otherwise, go home and play the record. But it's about being there. It's about sharing the experience, and it's about, watching your heroes do their thing, regardless of what it is. And also, because we know each other from the Sessions, which is a function band, and played weddings and not funerals, but maybe that could be on the cards one day. But it's about being part of that thing. And as I said to Christy when I did it with her, we're part of somebody's most special day, and that's a special thing, because in their minds, you're always going to be there. And if you bring it, doesn't matter if it's perfect or not, but as long as you bring the vibe, and you it's all just, good atmosphere, and you're adding to this, you're going to, add to the specialness of their day. So they're not going to be like, oh, that guy, he made a mistake in his solo of this or that. That's not what it is.
Yeah,
it's the whole experience.
Yeah, I have the same thing when I one of my favorite creative outlets is doing choral arrangements, and I'll sometimes just dig myself into this hole where I'm creating an arrangement and I'm literally spending 40 minutes on one bar, playing it over and over again, checking the voice leading, and it's really hard to step away from it and see a bigger picture at that stage, once you've just gone into this sort of slightly crazy mindset of really zooming in on the micro, when an audience, even an audience of musicians wouldn't even, their brains are computing the bigger picture, the structure, the narrative, variation across the whole thing. It's like, that's far more important.
Yeah, 100%. I think especially musicians, they'll be like, you know what, I've been in that situation. I know, we're here to enjoy the experience rather than nitpick this or that. And unfortunately, you get those guys that are always going to be there standing in the back with their arms folded.
Sure.
Tut, tut, tut.
The jazz police.
Yeah, well, fuck those guys.
It's something about, I do think the whole, it starts in college, I think, and possibly even before that, with grade examinations for kids and young musicians, where there's this very Victorian approach of this is your scale section, and I'm going to give you a mark out of 30, and then here's your pieces section, and it's sort of like this thing where you're creating music just for another person to evaluate it. And it's not an interactive process at all. It's not a creative process. It's a process of sort of performance and then evaluation, and that carries on right through music college. And then people, it built into their mentalities, and it's really difficult to escape from. But it doesn't have to be like that. Other countries just don't have this way of thinking. I've been doing a bit of studies in Denmark recently. A fantastic. The Rama Vocal Center in Aalborg, and the approach there is a million miles away. It's totally supportive, and mistakes are welcomed, and learning is very collaborative. Not much focus on the exam side of things, and it's a breath of fresh air. And it's just, I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet, particularly about the grade examination system that we force up the children to endure in this country.
Yeah. I mean, well, 2 points. I think there's quite a lot to learn from the sort of Norse countries, in terms of education, musical education, extracurricular activities, things like that, where, I know in places like Sweden, Norway, kids get sort of grants and they get pushed towards learning instruments, other languages, going into something extra rather than go lay about on the street or do nothing, try and be creative, try and bring these things out. And I think for me, personally, like when I started playing guitar, I'm self-taught. I learned by watching my friends play, and then I would go home and try and do those things. And, I started writing music and I was doing all these things, and I felt quite creative. And as I progressed, started learning more techniques and more scales and this, and to a point, I kind of felt at one stage that it was holding me back, because now I was thinking more, am I playing the right thing? Am I is this working correctly within the scale of this or that? And it kind of held me back a bit. And now I'm kind of in between both, where I've kind of let that go a little bit, and now I'm just trying to create my thing as it sounds to me. If it sounds good, then it sounds good. There's,
So that's where structure comes in really helpful with education. Because if you had a little bit more structure, perhaps it would help organize your learning a bit more. But of course, structure doesn't have to be an examination format.
That's working now again.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. All right. So we're back. For some reason, this desk, I think maybe because I'm leaving it on, I've got the same desk as what Austin has for the
Oh
session.
yeah.
And sometimes it just, maybe because I leave it on, it's just like, no, I've worked too much. I'm going to take a break. But yeah, we're back on, so we're good to go. You were saying about the structure of a musical education.
Yeah, so in this country, we've now created this culture where to give us structure and a goal-based system of musical education, it revolves around this exam process. Whereas it doesn't have to be like that. I teach some kids piano, and I'll do the exams with them if they're really keen, but I don't push it. Instead, we do a concert every 12 weeks where they just show off what they've done, and it's like a positive experience, but at the same time it puts them in an uncomfortable position and it gets their confidence up. And anyway, that's what music's all about, isn't it?
Yeah 100%. I mean, I I agree with you. I think especially with performing arts, you need to sometimes be in a position where you're slightly uncomfortable, and you have to show off what you can do and make mistakes and then learn from those. I've always been kind of the ilk of put yourself in a situation where you might, it's sink or swim, and see what you're made of. And I think especially with performing arts, that's very, very important, because you can sit in your bedroom and practice for 30 years, but if you've not shown that your skill, or you've not pushed yourself into a situation where you can demonstrate what it is that you know and what it is that you've learned, then there is, I mean, you gotta put yourself in that situation.
Especially doing it at a young age as well. It's great to be exposed to tricky things and deal with them by yourself. It's amazing.
I think that builds confidence as well. It's a very, very good thing. So, okay, we've been going on kind of a different path than what I usually take. We know you're Ed Blunt. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into being this fantastic piano player and musician that you are? How did it start for you? Where did the bug bite?
The bug bit very early on, when I was probably about 5 or 6, and I was like, I really learned how to use the CD player properly. And then I just spent a lot of time putting in CDs and just listening loads, as most people would have done at that age. And then I sort of got a bit obsessed with drums. I guess the main musical access point in the early 90s was Top of the Pops on Friday evenings, and like I'd just be obsessed with watching the drummers there. So my very good parents were good enough, could afford to shell out for drum lessons for me from the age of 7, and I started on snare drum for a couple of years, and then I got onto full kit as a reward for persevering with the technical side of the snare drum.
Paradiddling.
Exactly. And then I guess the piano was sort of the next natural thing for me to do. And so I started lessons with a local teacher. And to be honest, I really struggled with the piano in the early stages. I was never very good at reading. And just looking at the music, I was just finding it really difficult. And I'd love to know whether that was a result of poor teaching, which I don't think it was, or just my natural thing was not to do that kind of thing. So I learned how to play by ear, putting chords together, and then that sort of blossomed into a love of jazz music. And then in secondary school, we formed a little jazz band. I was lucky enough to be with some really great musicians in my class. and we did sort of like little function gigs around the local town, and then we all applied for music college, and that's where it went from there.
Fantastic. I mean, knowing you now and the caliber of musician that you are, it's hard to imagine that playing the piano was hard for you. Because now when you play, I look at you and it's effortless. Like it's one of the best things to watch you when you play something that's sort of the intro to Dancing on the Ceiling. I've seen other keyboard players doing that, and there's they do the guitar face where it's like they're really, and you're just like, I got this, and you just nail it every time. And I've always enjoyed your playing very much. I think you're a top keyboard player. So I'm glad that you persevered with it and that you kept going.
It's one of those things. I mean, everyone has their weak points as musicians, and if you made me perhaps sight read a piece with an orchestra, I don't think I'd be in that cool, calm state that you see me on a function gig, for example. So I still struggle with reading, but I am definitely much better, especially after teaching a lot. That's really helped with reading. But yeah, I've always been a musician to play from the ear, preferably without any music in front of me. But on the other hand, my graphic design brain, I do love the philosophy of sheet music and the layouts and the efficiencies of notation and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of score preparation and Sibelius and fonts and stuff like that as well.
Are you able to use Sibelius?
Sibelius is my sort of go-to program, yeah.
Well, I take my hat off for you, because that's
it's the shortcuts. If you can get your head around the shortcuts, it's yeah.
Great.
When you're on it for hours every day, it becomes sort of second nature.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, I suppose it's kind of like everything, where you put in your 10,000 hours.
Exactly.
You just get better and better at it.
Yeah.
Sure that if you keep going with the Premiere Pro, then it'll blossom into something else as well. Myself starting the podcast, I had to learn Premiere Pro from scratch, and I've definitely cut down my editing time quite a lot, where most of it I can sort of do it on the fly. So it's good. It's getting better. There is the multicam option, but for my purposes, it's not quite right.
Is that because you're only using two screens and it's?
Well, no, I've got the three cameras, but it's sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm just not used to it or not doing it right. But there's a lot of sort of stop and making sure that the cuts are on the right time when from this person to that person, or when I switch to the team view or the broad view, where if a banter's happening, you just but I mean, it's working for me the way that I'm doing it. So
well, if the result's the same, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Where did you get the idea for the? Sorry, we were still talking about you. Which college did you go to?
So I was at the Guildhall School.
Right.
I did the undergrad 4-year job.
That's
got a
it.
lot out of it.
Okay.
I was happy to finish.
Yeah.
I've never been very good at being in institutions right from school. I'm a bit of a free agent in that sense. I like being in control of what I'm doing. That's why I love self-employment, particularly in times like this. So Guildhall was the right place to get my chops together, meet lots of people, and start making a life in London. So I'm definitely glad I did it, but I didn't find it easy.
No. Okay. Where are you from originally?
From Dorking in Surrey, which
All right.
is a pretty nondescript home counties town, not far from London. Yeah.
Grew up there. It's a small town.
Yeah, small town vibes.
Yeah, great. But you said you had a good secondary school and you had some good musicians that you started a little jazz band with. That's
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. That if your peer group is all flowing in the same direction, it sort of makes life easier, and it gives you something to bounce off it, and it makes you competitive and really sort of and yeah, get your heart set on something quite early. It was funny. It was like there was no other option for us all, but we were just going to do music, and it was like that from the beginning. And luckily, we all had parents that were like, "If you want to do that, do that." Like, there were so many people whose parents would go, "Well, is that really a sensible career choice?" And of course, it's not a sensible career choice, but you only got one chance to do this. So
yeah, this life only goes around one time.
exactly,
you got to do what you got to do what you want to do and what makes you happy.
yeah,
It even if the money isn't as good, because I always say, job satisfaction is the number one factor. It's so important to enjoy what you do, or at least not dislike what you do, because you're going to have to do that for the majority of your time being awake. If you think just a regular job, 40 hours a week, how much of your awake time and of your time that you're conscious is that, and you're going to sleep for, say you're a good person and you sleep for 8 hours a night. Was that 56 hours that you're going to be sleeping in the week plus your 40? That's 96 hours. And how many hours have you got in a week? So plus travel time and all those things. So if you're going to be miserable at doing what you have to do to survive, then maybe, don't do it, because you're going to be miserable and you're going to make other people miserable.
Yeah. But that said, there are the times when the life of a musician is one of drudgery and boredom and humiliation. like in any job, there are some bleak moments.
Well, I think the opportunity for humiliation is a little bit bigger because, you put yourself out there, you perform in front of other people.
Yeah. But then you get these moments of just sheer beauty and joy and connection that you can't get in any other sphere of life, can you?
Yeah, there's something about the electricity that you get from a good gig.
Yeah. Plus, where music takes you to some like mad places, and you'd meet people that you'd never meet I mean, my usual week can vary from me going to Her Majesty's prisons to run a choir there, and hanging out with prisoners. And then I can be going to a stately home on a Saturday night to do a posh function gig. And then I can be in a school on a Monday morning teaching. Just the sheer range of people. It's so healthy and interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, variety is the spice of life, isn't it? The more people, because you as a person, your personality and your view on life and everything else is kind of 50-50, 50% of it is who you are and who your personality and whatever you were born with, but also the sum total of everybody that you've met, the experiences that you've had. Because, you can have a good person who's had just a run of bad luck and they'll end up being not such a nice person for the next few weeks, because it just builds on top of each other. And then you can have some psycho serial killer who's a nice guy because he's got the good people around him.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And the more people you meet, the more you're informed about how life works. And I don't know.
Points of view.
It's cool. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think it helps, and it's good to be open-minded and to be receptive to these things, and because we as people, we can get so sort of tunnel vision or in our own sort of way of thinking and our own way of doing things, and they're like, well, this is the only way and this is all I'll do. And the more people you meet, the more you expand your horizons, the better it is for you, because you're like, oh, hold on, maybe I didn't think about this in that way.
Yeah.
This is something I need to take on board. Or that guy's full of shit, I'm chucking this out the window. Because I mean, you meet those guys as well. And, you know, you sometimes, for the majority of the time, we're quite fortunate in that we're all
especially in the musical world. I can probably count on one hand the people I haven't got on with working in the music world, and they're probably all in the record industry.
yeah, that's a different bunch, or music managers. They're a different bunch. I don't want to put them all down, but
I guess they're not. With all due respect to them, they're not musicians in the true sense. They're businessmen essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are, and I guess maybe some of them are just sour because they wanted to be musicians and they're not good at it.
Right. Yeah. It's certainly a much tougher industry than our sort of our jazz or community music scenes. I think that sort of pop world it's a
dog world.
It is cutthroat, isn't it? The cliche is true. It's
No, it's not easy. I mean, and also as a band doing original music, it's a hard gig if you want to get out there and if you don't, especially if you don't conform to the norm of the vogue of the day, you know, whatever.
Sure.
There's, because you see the music kind of, it's like a river, you know, and it all flows in the same way. Some of them are a bit more towards the edge and some are like right in the middle, but it seems that they all move in the same sort of direction. And you know, the music of 2020, the majority of it is going to sound like the same song. You know, it's kind of like a paint by numbers thing or a pop by numbers. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of popular music. That's no secret there. I'm a rock and roller, and I'm more of a sort of a classic rock and roller. I remember back in my day. No, but it's maybe something somewhere that's current now would maybe trigger my fancy a couple of years down the line. But I'm very much against the one-hit wonder and you know, the sort of short-lived success and career. And some people have those aspirations. They're like, I just want to get this one out, and then that's it.
I guess it's the music industry has sort of transformed into more of a sort of a PR marketing thing rather than music, hasn't it? It sort of it feeds in with all these television programs that are now our only access to live music.
Talent.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah,
it's a visual marketing thing where you can create a product and then keep the product for a couple of weeks and then chuck it away and then get a new product. It's a funny one. But saying that, we should definitely not despair, because the live music scene is amazing. The YouTube music scene is amazing. Things happen. It just depends what audience you're hitting, isn't it? I mean, there's always an audience for quality, good stuff. It's just maybe there's less of them because there's less money involved, and I don't know.
Or, you know, the masses are just interested in what's current and what's hip and what's now.
Well, that's the problem. The people at the top of the chain, the record execs and the Radio 2 playlist creators, they dictate what the masses listen to, and it seems to be very beige nowadays.
Beige.
Well, it's sort of, you'll get your sort of, as you were saying, you get things that all sound the same. Like, for example, it's very hip to have this sort of Sam Smith style voice, male voice, high tenor voice nowadays, and you've got loads of guys that
either that or George Ezra.
Yeah, or that kind of vibe. Yeah, and I don't know, it's sort of like this self-perpetuating thing where the big radio stations sort of dictate this taste that's pretty unadventurous, and that if you only listen to Radio 2, or if you only listen to Capital or whatever, of course you're getting fed this stuff which is just very plain and unadventurous. So you've just got to look a bit further if you're interested in music, and that's why, as you and I have worked on lots of weddings together. That's why the first dance choices can be so unadventurous, because most people don't really listen to music in a active way. It's a passive thing, and then they'll receive the input from their only source of music. That John Legend, All of Me is now the romantic song for this year. Okay. And that's what we're going to have for the first dance. It's an interesting one. But then I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and she was like saying, well, some people, let's talk about wine. Some people don't know the difference between a Merlot and a Shiraz or whatever, and they'll just go, that one will do. And it's the same thing, isn't it? You can't be an expert about everything.
No, you can't. That's true. But I'm very much a jack of all trades, master of none, and quite happy to be. Where sort of bringing this back to having hobbies and things like that. Something that, I mean, I like building things, and I like baking, and I mean,
you're the cook of today, aren't you? I mean, banana bread looks amazing.
I woke up this morning. The strangest thing, right? I've never been an early riser ever in my entire life.
You're a sound engineer, mate.
If I want to see the sun rise, I'll stay up and watch. Rather than get up and watch. But this morning I woke up at 6, and I was like, "Well, I'm awake now. I better make myself useful." So I made some waffles, some coconut milk waffles, which you'll be able to eat those as well. You're not. You're vegetarian, not vegan. Are you vegan?
Well, we're getting to vegan.
Okay. Well, you would have been able to eat them anyway, because there are no eggs in there. I'll send you.
Oh, wow.
Freaking delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, and coconut milk. That's it. And they're fluffy and delicious.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Great.
Yeah. Now I've in this time I've kind of run through a lot of things. Yeah, baked scones, but I get my daughter involved as well. She loves doing this.
Oh yeah. I've been quite enjoying not quite rationing, but using ingredients in a much more careful way, because I don't really want to go to the shops much. So it's like, how can I preserve that ingredient and use it at a later time? And it's healthy for us to remember that, like, not everything is available all the time. Not take things for granted.
100%. I mean, last week I tried from Tuesday to Sunday. I tried to get eggs. I couldn't get eggs anywhere.
Right.
Anywhere. I went to Sainsbury's, I went to Tesco, I went to Lidl, I went to my local corner shop. Nowhere. Now there's eggs again. I think everybody's kind of realized it's not necessary to have all the food in your house. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird how people react in these situations, especially because it's such an unprecedented situation that we're in. Nobody in our generation has had to deal with this.
And it happened very quickly, to be fair, didn't it?
Yeah. It was, I mean, when about 2-3 weeks ago, it was still sort of, it's okay, it's all fine. And then it's just like, that's it.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I suppose it's a good thing to have us on lockdown, since it's not quite just the flu.
Yeah.
And I'm very guilty of that. In the beginning, I thought that it was all, blown out of proportion. And
same here.
I guess I'm maybe quite conspiracy minded, and I was like, what's behind this? What's going on? What's the real deal that's going on? But since I've seen that people are actually, dirtying their trousers, especially the higher ups in government positions, I'm like, okay, maybe this is a serious thing. Having seen so many people get it, and good friend of mine, yesterday I saw his post. He's 38 and he's, strong as an ox. He's a big guy, works hard, nothing, and he's got it. So it's I mean, I'm just
scary times.
staying home for now and getting on with everything else. Add additions to the treehouse.
So what's your plan with? What have you got? Any nice little things that you're going to be working on? Music stuff while you're stuck.
Music stuff. I would hope so. I mean, I'm going to be. We worked out sort of like a daily schedule to try and keep ourselves sane. Where the family's just gone out for a walk, but do some yoga, do music lessons because my daughter, she's got a keyboard and a guitar, so I'm going to teach her some music. We do archery every day, which is great. She's got
brilliant.
Yeah, she's got a little bow that I got her. And yeah, we got a target in the backyard, so we do that. We try and be outdoors as much as we can when the weather allows it.
Well, it's lovely at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. Like, have you seen the pictures on social media where it's March every year and it's just people drenched, and then March quarantine, sun is shining.
Classic, isn't it?
Upside down. It's weird because right now in Italy, normally it's sunny and beautiful and great, and now it's freezing. It's like 3 degrees in Sardinia, where even at Christmas, they were people walking on the beach during Christmas.
Right.
And now it's freezing. So
it's easier to do a quarantine in horrible weather, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, we're quite fortunate in that we've got a nice big backyard, so we can spend a lot of time outside.
Yeah.
Since I built the fold down bed for the treehouse, my daughter's in there all the time reading stuff. She set herself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. She cleaned it the other day. She's like, I want it to be like a real house. Because she's got a mud kitchen in there with a sink that's got a fold down table for her to prepare things, and then and then the bed. It's like a loft bed, but it folds down, so she can collapse that and have the whole house, or have the bed up. And so we've been doing a lot of that, and
it's like they're out of school, but they're like learning completely different things now.
Yeah,
and I like really experiencing childhood.
I'm kind of are these things more valuable?
Yeah,
because it's life skills. She helped me to build the bed.
Sure.
Holding the stuff when I'm sewing, handing me screws, bringing here and there. And whenever I do any of the baking stuff that I do, I get her involved as well. And, these are the things they don't learn at school.
And you'll look back on it as a time when you just got to spend loads of time together.
It's weird as well. I mean, because for me, when I went to school when I was 6, as when primary school starts, and I never went to nursery because it's, for me, I didn't want to go. I think I went like half a day. And I was like, no. I was antisocial. That's me. Especially back then. But no, I mean, I had my things, and I was fortunate that both my parents are teachers, and for the majority of my childhood, we would live in the sort of boarding school of the school where my dad or my mum worked. So I was always sort of close to where they were. But in growing up in South Africa, we had a maid, and I would wake up in the morning and I'd make my breakfast and I would do my things, and she'd be there looking after me, and I'd play Legos and I'd do whatever I needed. But if I ever needed something, she was there. So my parents would work and keep all that going. So it's and my daughter's been going to, she started nursery when she was 18 months, and it's just this all the way through. I mean, then she only did one morning a week. And then when she turned 3, she started going like every morning for a couple of hours. And then at 4, she went into school. Then it was a couple of hours every morning. And then from 5, it's full on 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. That's like a freaking life sentence from the moment you can walk.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I guess now we've got the time to do these things, and it's a perfect opportunity for creative types to have an outlet and kind of see what we're made of.
Totally.
Even though I suppose it's kind of hard mentally, which is a bit of a problem. And since musicians and creative types are all, I'd say, slightly more towards the sensitive side, because we have to be able to see things in a different way and interpret them and make an everyday situation into something that's a poem or a song or a composition. Other people be like, oh, look, there's a bird flying, and you'll be like, I'm going to write a song about this beautiful bird. So it's a bit harder, the isolation. But like you said before, the good thing about this is that people are more social because we've got time, which is great. And we've all got enough time for kind of everything in the day because you're not going anywhere. You're spending time on travel. And that's a big thing, spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day on public transport or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate. I've got my motorbike. So for me, it's like zim, zim, in and out. But when I was on public transport, it was excruciating. Unless you've got like a book to read or something to listen to, it gets quite torturous,
Totally.
But I think it's good that we're all pulling together and we're all supporting each other, which is a very good thing. And I think we should all aim to keep this going even after we've been let out.
Yeah. I think it will really teach us to appreciate each other again properly. And from my sort of perspective, it might be something to help glue our society back together slightly.
Yeah.
Again, the shared trauma of something like this. Hopefully, I don't know. Let's see.
Well, I mean, the vast majority of people have kind of demonstrated positive traits and pulling together and sharing and all these sorts of things. And then obviously you get the 1% who are the hoarders and the assholes, but they've always been assholes anyway. So it's not like any surprise there. But I think we've seen a lot more people demonstrate good traits, and it's almost not exaggerated, but it's made it grow into a good thing. And I think if we can, keep that going forward, is a very good thing. Tell me then, after college, what did you just step straight into becoming a freelance musician?
Yeah, pretty much. I just during college, I sort of picked up some regular gigs and other bits of work like that. I was working a lot with choirs at the time, mainly accompanying as their piano player. And then sort of a year after I left college, I decided that I really wanted to do my own choral thing. So I set up Camden Voices through sort of recruiting singers I already knew, and then just sort of some Gumtree ads, and just sort of put together this choir for the first session. And that was in 2013. And now, 7 years later, it's become this thing that it's like we've done tours abroad. Right. We're well known. We've got some amazing singers and people and friends as part of the gang, and it's taught me so much, not only about music and how to write music well, but also how to sort of manage something, how to promote something, how to work with people, leadership skills, promotion skills. It's been really a great thing for me to do. Yeah, no, I mean,
when we did the gig in, was it St. Anne's? 12
the Watches 8 Centre.
That was a great gig, man. And the the choir, they're sounding great, and obviously they've got great leadership. So there's that. You're pulling them all together and getting it out there. So you said that with you're going to be doing weekly sort of get-togethers with the choir. I think it's a good idea, and even if it's not for rehearsal per se, because people can rehearse on their own, and they really should. But it's great to have a regular thing, and also to keep that sense of community, which is
exactly.
So
we talked about what we could do at our first session last night, and there were some really interesting ideas. One of which was a sort of a desert island disc session where a couple of people choose a track, and then everybody can listen to that track on Spotify, and then that person can do a little talk about why that track is important to them or something like that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's something to bond us all together, but in a musical way.
Also getting to understand your colleagues,
Yeah.
Again, it's that whole thing of exposing yourself to different opinions, because I'm very guilty of being very opinionated, especially when it comes to music. I like what I like, and the things I don't like are all shit and crap, and they can all fuck up. But I've definitely become more open-minded as I'm more grey hair in my beard. It's and I think it's only a good thing, really. And I've learned that from learning or talking to different musicians of different styles and stuff like that, and really trying to listen with an open mind rather than this is pop out the window, But then I'm a hypocrite because I love pop music like ABBA. I fucking love ABBA,
right?
Things like that. Boney M, with that stuff, and that's disco pop. And so there are so many different genres of music that I actually do like. And maybe I'm just trying to be mean and a rock and roll. I'm like, no, I can't deal with that. I don't know, but that's a fantastic idea. I think.
Yeah.
And maybe you can incorporate if somebody can do like a version of their favorite song to go along with it.
Yeah, a little live stream performance for everybody.
Yeah, live solo. Because there's going to be a while. Maybe you can do. There's 30 of you. You can do. Let's say over the next 3 weeks, you can do about 6 every time, and everybody can have their 10 minutes. If you've got an hour, you're like, okay, this is your track. Show us your best representation of it, and everybody's like, beautiful, and take away from it what they get from it.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. Yeah, so we're going to do things like that. You can't sing at the same time, so sort of rehearsal is out of the window. But there's all sorts of stuff you can do. So we'll see how it goes.
It's brilliant, man. It's good that you're keeping the thing alive, and I commend you for that. It's good to keep the family spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially,
it really cheered us all up doing it last night. It's sort of like, it was hilarious, sort of having all these people just staring at you and sort of like, oh wow, hello.
Well, I have to talk now. Why don't you say something?
I taught a little bit of a new song to them, and I muted them all, and it was really weird, just sort of giving out these parts on my piano and just having this sort of pin drop silence staring back at me.
You're like, if only rehearsals could be this quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
Just have everybody wear a mute button around their neck when you go to rehearsal. Chatting too much. All right, everybody on mute. I suppose it's kind of hard, keeping the discipline with 30 musicians. I'm sure it's hard with even 4, but it's a good thing that you get to do that. But I mean, they need to understand as well when they're there. It's kind of like it's not a social. It's it's work.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're getting paid for it or not, it doesn't matter. You're there to do a job, so do it in a professional sense, in a professional manner. That's very important. But yeah, that's and what have you got planned for your quarantine and isolation?
Well, not much at the moment. Putting out that video really sort of sucked the energy out of me, because it was a really intense week of learning how to do things and being on my laptop, and that sort of kept me busy for a week and sort of allowed me to create this bubble around myself where I was not looking at the news at all.
Yeah.
So now I'm sort of coming out of all that and all the press stuff that's been associated with that. So next week I'm starting up my online teaching practice.
Great.
I do a day's teaching in a school in North London, and I've got 10 students signed up for virtual lessons. So I'm really interested to see how that goes. I've been talking to musician friends, and apparently it works really well, particularly with kids, because they're so flexible and they can pick new things up really quickly.
Yep.
Adults maybe find it a bit weird. Yeah. So that's great, and that's going to keep me going financially as well, because just having something regular and still going in the diary is good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I love my teaching, and I love the kids' personalities are so funny, and it's just a good thing for everybody. So that's going to be good. I hopefully have some arranging bits and bobs that will come through. I do some freelance stuff for some sheet music publishers and some record producers. I've recently been doing some string arrangements for some pop music. So hopefully more of that will come through, which is
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
and
I really enjoy
about all of that is you can do that from home.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I don't have to see anyone all day.
That's
It's
right.
me and Sibelius.
Yeah, but I mean, also the lessons. It's great that you can do that online. I mean,
Yeah.
back in the day before the old interwebs and all the fantastic technology that we've got, you had to travel. You had to, or they had to come to you, which is.
And I wonder now if it will take off as a thing. Now people can see you can do it. If it will be more common for music teachers to say, "I'm sorry, I just teach from home, and if you can't travel to me, we'll do it online," and that's the new standard. If you see what I mean.
I can't see why not. Really, it's kind of a win-win, isn't it? Because if you factor in, lesson price, how much ever it is, for an hour, but parents, especially, if you're teaching children, it's the travel to and from. It's also their time because, they'll be chaperoning. So if they have to take time out of work or out of their day or out of, even if it's a stay-at-home parent, right? They still have to take that hour and a half. Say it's an hour lesson, but it's a travel to and from. They have to take that time out of their day. Obviously, as a parent, you do it with love. It's not a problem. But there's an hour and a half that's now, you could have been doing something else. You got to now do this. But if you can do it online, you can be like, there you go. That's fine. Every now and then you check in and you can continue on with laundry or doing whatever. Then you as a parent, then you'll have that time in the evening for yourself. Whereas you don't have to do these things. But also with, adults wanting to do these things, because again, taking that time out of your day is not doing your hour lesson is one thing, but say if you have to travel an hour there, hour lesson, hour back, that's 3 hours out of your day.
Yeah. Who wants to do that after work? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I can't see why people wouldn't do that. And probably if we keep pushing this thing, then maybe more people will get into it, because they'll be like, I didn't know that there was this possibility to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got onto the Zoom because a friend of mine, Brenda Dorgroot, she's a harpist, and she teaches on Zoom all the time. She's got American students because she lived in America as well. So she's still teaching people that are in America. So we can, teach people all over the world. And
it's amazing.
It's great. It's definitely.
And I wonder if in terms of the teaching itself, I wonder if it creates more independent learners out of it, because there's not a piano teacher there to grab your hand and put it in on middle C or whatever. So that it means that the student has to figure out more things by themselves.
I think that's a good thing, because you keeping the thinking process alive, and you're keeping the creative side of it alive, because yes, you're going to get guidance and you're going to get somebody, but it's not as structured. And speaking from personal experience, figuring something out for yourself, it stays in there much longer than it does if somebody just shows you.
Exactly. Yeah.
When I was younger, when I was in sort of primary school, a friend of my dad had a computer shop, and then the shop closed down. Don't know what the story was. Anyway, so we ended up with a double garage full of computer parts. And this is back in the old XT 286, 386.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Floppy disks and stiffy 10 megabyte hard drives and these big old
big
CRT
boxes.
Screens. Yeah. And I learned everything from building and repairing computers, from just spending time in there and building computers. And I ended up, because my parents being teachers, they didn't have money to buy me a computer, so I built 3 computers, the best ones that I could find, and I sold those, and I bought myself a computer with that. So doing things, actually getting involved and doing it, and allowing yourself to make mistakes, it adds to the learning process. And it's, there's the sense of satisfaction, self-worth. You're like, look, I try something new, and fucking hell, it's not perfect, but I'm on the right track. And it provides so much inspiration and motivation to keep going. Yeah. So
I think that's what lots of adults who learn piano could do with more of that mentality, because adults are so much more vulnerable, and they are often much more sort of perfectionist in their approach about learning something. Rigid. Whereas kids are happy to play the violin and sound crap for 3 years and just put up with it.
Yeah. I mean, for them, I suppose it's like, well, I'm better than me of yesterday. So and that's the way I approach everything. As long as I'm better than the me of yesterday, or kind of the same, but just as long as I'm not worse, then I'm winning.
That's lovely.
On the right track.
We at the end of just as the coronavirus was getting bad, I had a student piano concert scheduled in at the school I teach at. So all the kids were going to play in front of their parents, and we had to cancel it at late notice. So instead, we did a little recording where I recorded each kid playing their song and made it into a virtual concert type thing.
That's awesome.
And after each kid had done their recording, and if they'd messed up a lot, I was like, should we have a listen back? And they listened back, and I was like, should we do that again? And they're like, no, that's fine. That's fine. They just,
that was my performance. That's fantastic. Yeah, just
that's how I did it. I can't be bothered to do it again. That'll do.
That's brilliant. Fantastic. Yeah, it's good. And they're like, well, that's what it is. And I think that's great, because they are aware that, in that moment of time, in that performance, this was what they did, and that's what's the best that they could do in that time, and be happy with that. And just like, okay, I've got this, file it away. Next time I'm going to be better. But I don't need to, that's already done. I don't need to read. And it's like you said, I think we all kind of need to maybe incorporate that more, especially as adults, because we've kind of been in this sort of regimented schedule, and everything's got to be that, and performance is judged, and it's for so much longer that we've kind of formed these views in our head that it's got to be like this, and if you're not better and it's you're not going anywhere, then you give up. But don't ever give up. The resilience is such an important thing.
Yeah, and lack of fear as well.
So bad. Say again.
And the lack of fear in a kid's approach to life. We can learn a lot from kids.
Yeah.
The 100%. Wisdom.
They just go for it. Which is
exactly.
a very good thing to do and to try and incorporate in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to be doing any more of these virtual choirs?
Possibly. I'm aware of the concept of quitting while you're ahead.
Okay.
We wouldn't want to do something too similar, because I think we created something really beautiful with that first video, and the song choice was right, the performance was right, the arrangement worked well. So perhaps we're going to be thinking of doing something different. We had the idea last night of maybe going in a direction of a improvised virtual choir song, a bit in a sort of Chinese whispers format, where one person records an improvisation to a click, a metronome, to give it some form of structure. Then they send that on to someone else who will layer something on top of it, and then et cetera, and then it all comes back to me, and then I will edit and create a performance out of it in some way.
Right, that's very
yeah. I'd
love to see what comes out of that. I can imagine. Like, are you going to be the first one? Are you going to lay down the rules?
I think with this kind of thing, you do need some form of structure. So perhaps I would put down like a looped bass line of some sort, just to give it some foundation, and then
a key.
Exactly, some form of tonality, and tempo, and then see what happens from there. And rhythm. Yeah.
If you're going to put down, well, you're good on the snare. You can just
exactly.
Keep a nice.
The only issue with that is that we'd need singers. I guess that it's slightly more involved, because we're laying singers on top of singers, so that the time frame would be longer, because there would be more technology involved. But I'm sure there's an app where you can just import a file and then sing on top of it, and then export the file and send it on. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that most of these people have a computer, and with a computer you can get free software that records really well.
There's an online music software. I can't remember what it's called, but you can do it in your browser.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Oh. It's like an open source version of GarageBand or something like that.
Right. Well, I'd have to check that out. That's a good concept. Maybe you can start, putting the bass line down, and then you have the basses, laying down something, and then, all the way up to your sopranos.
Yeah.
As you kind of would do recording a song, where you your drums and bass, your foundation, and then you bring in keys and guitar and then vocals on top.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. If you need any hand, I'd love to be involved in that.
Oh, nice. Great. Really. Let's do it.
Yeah, right. Let's do that. Well, I thank you very much for your time.
It's been lovely. I've been looking forward to this for ages.
Yeah, me too, man. Depending on how this quarantine goes, I've been building a mobile podcast studio where I can take everything and put it in a box and go around. So if we're all healthy and still alive, maybe I can do some more on location stuff.
Oh, that would be great.
Come and do another one of these.
Yeah, please.
We can do once we've got all this together, we can do sort of like how we put this thing together kind of video, which will be an add-on to the thing. Which
yeah. Ideas.
Well, keep them coming, man. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to be sharing all your social media and also the video of the virtual choir. I could I don't know if we'll just share a link to the radio interview that you did. I think rather than cutting it up and putting it somewhere. I don't know if we're going to have permission for that, but yeah. So we'll send all the links and stuff out, and also to the Camden Voices tour dates. Well, there's no tour dates at the moment, but there will be.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
We're keeping strong and we're keeping positive.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I really.
You're welcome, Tim. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, man. You have yourself a good day.
Yeah, you too. And that's the end.
That's the end.
Right. Well, there we have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I have. Unfortunately, I've had a whole score of technical difficulties during the recording of this one, which is why it took me a little while to get it out. But hopefully the content was good and you enjoyed that. I will be linking to Ed's social media, and I'll also be posting links to the Camden Voices website and the virtual choir that they did, as well as the BBC interview. As always, I'll be linking to my social media, so you can catch up with me there and say hi. I have a Patreon page, so if you want to support the podcast, you can do that at patreon.com/HeySoundGuy. As always, like, share, subscribe, get the word out there. Keep it sound.